Welcome to the Rebel Roadshow.
How many tulips is too many tulips?
We're talking with people making money off the beaten path. Let's kick it over to Madeline, who's got some drinks for us.
Tequila, gin.
Oh, and I'm getting paid for this too? Dope.
Every shoot's almost Fyre Fest, right? We're a picture of a sandwich away from just being canceled. Every shoot. Cheers. This is the first one of these that we've actually done remotely. Even though it feels like the Roadshow, the Rebel Roadshow, this is the first one we've actually done on the road. And to do it here at the House ES is fucking amazing. So thank you so much
for
allowing us to come in here. Now, for those that don't know, the House ES is a staple here in Brooklyn. It has spectacular performances, immersive parties. It's a culture that celebrates art and inclusion, and you are the creative visionary behind it, Anya. So thank you so much for joining us here today on the Rebel Roadshow.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Aaron. He's a big fan of the House ES. He comes here quite often. He has a great time. He's friends with some of the talent that comes here and performs on this stage. So Aaron, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And what are we drinking today?
Drinking a pink flamingo with a twist. I added Red Bull, and it is it's not a good tasting drink, but it looks good.
More than the sight of it, I love the taste of it. The taste of hot, freshly killed blood.
It looks good.
As a nightclub owner, I'm sure that Red Bull is heavy in the rotation.
Yeah, literally bathing in it.
Yeah, you got to. Now, I'm assuming your schedule is a little crazy. Are you fully nocturnal?
Absolutely not.
So you're waking up during the sunlight hours.
I am awake usually during the sunlight hours. I am done with my responsibilities by around midnight at the latest.
By midnight, and then you can leave. But this place is open till like 4 a.m.
Or 5.
Or 5, or maybe longer.
No, 5.
There's no rules. You can just keep going, right? This is New York.
New York just lets you do whatever the fuck you want.
But you know that 5's the sweet spot. Everyone's got to get the fuck out. So, what drew me to this place is you come from a history of like a long lineage of like New York underground art scene, right? From where you started and hearing that you had this loft in Bushwick where this kind of organically grew. It seems like you fall in line with a lot of like the places like Paradise Garage or punk rock venues like CBGBs that spawn these cultural revolutions in the city. And House ES seems to be in line with that now in its own unique way. So tell me a little bit, how did this punk squat house that was a center for arts and culture and aerial dances and circus acts turn to this magnificent venue that we're sitting in today? So
we've always kind of just created things that we wanted to experience with our friends. Originally, we weren't old enough to get into nightclubs. So that's how CS started when we were very young. So what do a bunch of like 19, 20-year-olds want to do in a building with no adult supervision? So
you were 19 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got this loft space in Bushwick.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, we're going to do some art classes here, gatherings.
No, it wasn't even like that. It was, so a friend of mine who was throwing really giant illegal warehouse parties that I was very involved in Bushwick.
Everyone has that one friend.
Yeah. So he kind of got sick of like running extension cords and getting shut down. And he's like, I'm going to have my own space. He was looking at spaces. He saw this like crack house essentially. And he's like, it's too small for me, but you should check it out. I was not looking for space at all. I had my own like roach infested basement in Crown Heights at the time that I was very happy with. And then I saw the space and then I was like, I should sign the lease on this. Like it was very like moment of genius or moment of like being 19 and like lost and just like trying to do whatever seems fun at the moment. I'm not sure, but there was this moment where I was like, I should sign a lease on this decrepit crack house.
How much was that decrepit crack house?
It was $3,000 a month.
Oof.
It had 8 rooms.
Okay.
It was a triangular building, the second floor of a triangular building that was 2 stories high. This amazing roof deck. And they just kept like building more rooms. Every time they couldn't pay rent, they would like build another room and like move in another person to try to help with rent. Like it was just a maze of like pallets and
what kind of things were you doing in there? I know they were doing some aerial acts and some circus tricks.
So we started doing, I started stilt walking about maybe like 6 months to a year before I signed the lease on the first space. So I had gotten into circus, but like very barely. And then I decided to form a female performance troupe of all like lady circus performers.
Awesome.
So I went on Craigslist and I was like, who wants to be in this girl gang? Met this girl who was an aerialist, and I was like, well, if you're going to be in my girl gang, I should like know how, like what this entails. Took an aerial class, fell in love with it. And so at the new space, we were like, okay, the ceiling is kind of almost high enough to do aerial. So we had like one rigging point.
Wow.
And
trust. That's a lot of trust in an old decrepit crack house. I think this will hold this. And then there were a lot of people coming over. How did that kind of grow to build this like community?
So there wasn't that much of a scene. I mean, the scene was strong, but it was like maybe 1 or 2 things a weekend.
Okay.
So it was kind of easy. It was like everyone's hanging out here tonight. We would do a party once a month. And then we would do these like sewing workshops. We'd do like circus Skillshare. It was very cute.
And then tragically there was a fire and it burnt down.
So it was a Tuesday and it was Earth Day.
On Earth Day?
I remember, yes, because our friend had a party that night that we were all going to attend. But so we were cleaning up after a party that was like a 2.5, 3 day party that happened. So like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we partied. Monday, we slept. Tuesday, we were like cleaning. And then a piece of toast, like a piece of pita in a toaster oven caught on fire. And then you're not supposed to open the toaster oven when it's on fire because it gives it oxygen. So we opened it and then it leapt up into this like where the wild things are, monster head.
Oh my God.
That was made out of twine.
Was it terrifying?
Yeah. And the whole thing caught on fire. There was like flames shooting out of its eyes.
How quick did it go up?
It went from like, don't call the fire department to like call the fucking fire department in like under a minute.
It was like 6 trucks.
It was 4 trucks. It was a 4-alarm fire. Yeah. And then the whole ceiling caught on fire.
Oh my God.
Because it was like a tin ceiling. And so like all this stuff incinerated. And then by the time
it probably wasn't up to code.
That happened. I don't know if it was up to code. I think it was before Bushwick like was involved in code.
Right. It was very loose and fast.
Yeah. So then once the ceiling caught on fire, we all ran out of there. And then like the windows like imploded in dramatically.
Oh God, really?
Yeah. And then the fire trucks came and then they like knocked a hole in the ceiling, in the roof of the building and dumped all the water inside.
Wow.
And then, it was like the cops finally let us in there like 2 days later and they were like, this looks like a box of melted crayons up in here.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, no one was hurt.
We lost the cat.
You lost a cat?
Yeah.
Well, that had to be very traumatic to experience that.
Yeah.
And then what, were you devastated also because here was this like community that you were building and this things that you were doing and...
Well, it wasn't that intentional in the beginning. So it was like, hey, we're hanging out and we're like into this thing. We're into circus. We're going to make some shit. Like, it wasn't like, here's this community space and we're doing something like relevant.
Right.
Like it was just, we didn't even have social media back then. So it was just like,
Word
you're doing what you're doing with your friends. And that's the extent of it. Right. But then when it burned down is when everyone was like, oh my God, it's so important. You have to keep going. And then people started like organizing fundraisers. And that's really when House of Yes, like from my perspective, kind of became this like staple of this like underground scene that was happening at the time.
It's funny that in that like moment where you had a near death experience, it's traumatic, but here it's led to this like rebirth and next chapter in your life. It's like something, it's something very beautiful about that out of that tragedy came something that gave you that push to be like, hey, what did we love about this place? We love the things we did. So let's see where we can take
and
this.
it was like this community drive. It wasn't like, oh, we're just doing this thing by ourselves. It's like everyone else is like, this has to keep going.
And then what was that community support like? Like what were people doing? So
we threw this legendary party. It was still one of the best parties I've ever been to. And it was at the Pussycat Lounge in the financial district.
Oh, nice.
Do you know that place?
I remember it. Yes.
So it's been there for like 25 years and it's run by this like crazy Russian like amazing guy, Robert. And we knew him through doing weird illegal parties, and he owns that whole building. And so he lent us, so there was like the strip club, the upstairs of the strip club, and then like 3 or 4 floors of just like construction. And he's like, do your party. And there was like.
You took over the whole strip club or just the third floor?
The whole entire building. So it was like a 5-story
wow
party. But we had like, we're like, oh, let's do aerial off of the scaffolding on the outside of the building. And like somebody was breathing fire on top of a taxi cab, like in the middle of traffic. Like it was crazy.
Wow. How many people?
I mean, it probably was not that many people. I mean, we made $14,000.
Pre-social media, you're just handing out.
But this was like the hottest
Facebook
thing. Like
posts.
literally it was like the house yes burned down. This is where you want to be.
Right. That's really awesome. So that you raised $14,000 because someone gifted you this space and a lot of people showed up. Now you got $14,000. What did you do with that? What's the next step for House of Yes?
So we went on Craigslist and found a venue pretty quickly. And it was this abandoned not abandoned. It was, for rent, but it was an ice house.
An ice house.
In East Williamsburg. Yeah.
And it was huge.
It was very tall and very narrow. So it was like half the width of the space, but it was as tall as the space.
So how long was that run?
That was 5 years.
Tall ceiling, so a lot of aerial stuff.
So that's when we were like, let's get this really impressive space. Let's now we have to like get our shit together and be really serious. And it went from like cute loft with our buddies hanging out to like, let's become like an actual circus facility.
So you were doing like theatrical plays in there, or it was just circus type acts?
Well, we don't come from theater like we come from nightlife, right? So there's a lot of theatrical stuff in nightlife, but we're not like theater educated.
No, I just watched you do a rehearsal on Friday for Dirty Circus, and it felt like there was a theatrical background there.
Well, yeah, there's 18 years of House of Yes. So it was mostly an aerial facility. So it was like an aerial acrobatics school. All the truss in here was from that second place. So it was like serious, like rigging. And we just like had a lot of classes for adults who were doing circus. Like now it's a massive scene.
Wow.
But back then it was like us and 2 other venues that were doing that.
Yeah, that's very hot now. There's aerial places.
Yeah, now it's like a fitness
it's in every
thing.
suburban,
yeah.
Town has a aerial.
Yeah, but back
place.
then it was like there's only these like 2 or 3 places where you can go take a class.
So you did that for a little bit, and then rent became too high, and you had to shut down. I mean, we all know that the last 10 years in New York has been interesting. So the second space was also completely legal, so there was no. It wasn't like, oh, get an investor and like get a liquor license. Like there's a glass ceiling to doing things not above board. Right.
So we kind of were like stagnating. Like the shows kept getting better and better. The parties were like starting to get taken seriously, but we weren't really throwing our own parties. It was like our friends coming in and renting the space, and we were there for the theater. I mean, theater. It wasn't
but
like
the word of mouth started
weird
growing.
Outsider like art variety.
I think it's just because
circus stuff.
The name House of Yes just has an aura to it. So it's just a curiosity. You leave this space and shut down. Was there a moment where you're like, oh, I'm not going to do this?
No. So we really thought that, so they were like, so the rent was $5,000 at the end of it. And then they were like, give us $10,000. I mean, there was just no way that we could generate like twice the amount of rent. I mean, it seems like what's five, but it was just so much money.
Yeah.
And so we never really saw them showing the space to anyone. So we were like, oh, they're not going to get what they're asking for. But then it turned out that they rented it to like a sound studio that was like in the building next to it. And they just knocked the hole through the building and like expand. So we really thought that
you were cocky.
They were going to let us stay there because we didn't
like,
see
they got nobody coming in here.
Well, they just, they had a couple of walkthroughs and like the people were just like delusional or like, it was just like, this is not, no one wants this.
Then just a wrecking ball comes through the wall.
And then they were like 2 months out. They're like, okay, you guys got to move out. And so that was very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But also kind of like, I think we felt a little bit like stagnant and stifled also, 5 years somewhere, like there's only so much growing you can do.
Right.
And it felt like really restricted like not having budgets, not being able to do the real thing, not being able to get nicer equipment. Like you're kind of like, all right, we've been doing this thing.
But that's a huge leap from being like $5,000 a month rent to then like finding a space in Bushwick, which is like, now it's a different Bushwick.
Yeah.
So it's more expensive. Liquor license is insane. Your lighting system alone is insane. And this is a massive production. How do you make that leap from, all right, this is an aerial school to now we're going to be this cultural staple nightclub that in the heart of Brooklyn where everyone's going to go?
Well, so that wasn't the plan. Obviously, we were like, the plan was that we're like, let's keep doing this House of Yes thing, but let's not do it illegally. So we need partners. Ideally, this partner is somebody who has like above board, like restaurant bar experience, maybe has experience in construction, like something along those lines. And so then these two cousins, Justin and Alon, who are my current partners on this venue, they had been around in the scene, like through the Burning Man community. Justin is an amazing percussionist. And so when I would do these like holy shit moments and like Brooklyn warehouse raves, I would like have all these drummers like storm the dance floor. And so he was my go-to drummer. And so we kind of knew each other. They used to come like 3 generations deep, like of Jews come to our Christmas show every year. And that was like their thing. And they'd like smuggle in their own wine because like our wine was shitty. So anyway, so we kind of like were acquaintances with these people. And I think we had like 2 coffee dates and then just were like, let's do
And
this.
They went all in.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was 2 years of building it.
And then during that time, are you just thinking about all the acts that you're going to do here?
No, you're like surviving.
Just
You're like, it's never going to open. We're bleeding money.
yeah.
You know, we were raised this roof. So this roof, the ceiling was, I don't know if you can tell in this video, but it used to be like 13 feet. And then we
Really?
like ripped the roof off the building
Wow.
and built a taller space.
This place is a lot bigger than it looks outside. Like all like the little,
Yeah. And with people in it, it looks even bigger.
the quirky maze and the patio and the Onyx room. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's deceiving. once you
Imagine
get
being
inside
here
it.
on drugs. Just, it takes a whole different shape. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get lost.
You get lost, or you get found. It depends. I just think it truly embodies the name, right? It's House of Yes. It's inclusion. Like anyone and everyone shows up here and it's accepting. So it's just fun. It's a fun time. You can't find many places like that.
I do like that radical inclusivity line you have because it
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, I grew up in an era where you came to New York and there was, oh, well, this is like the Wall Street Club and this is a gay club and this is that. And then you were just like, have ripped the Band-Aid off and been like, no. This is a place where we have the way of the yes. And this is how you have to be. And everyone's just going to be in the world that you want to see, which is beautiful in that statement. So that's kind of what drew me when I read your story. I was like, oh, that's a really beautiful way of seeing the world. It's like create the world you want to live in. What goes behind the way of the yes? Where did that mantra come from? And why did you want to create that?
The name was just kind of like, I mean, there was the play House of Yes that I knew of because in high school I made costumes for it.
Okay.
But I like don't even remember if I've seen it or saw the movie fully. But anyway, I just thought it was such a great name. And yeah, it was
It is a
like
great name.
this infinitely possible, like we don't have to decide what it's going to be. It's just like whatever feels good right now.
You have like certain guiding principles. It's like, hey, there has to be consent. There's all these rules to House of Yes. Talk to me about how you came up with that.
I think you kind of like listen and learn and figure out what's needed. So like consent was not a part of like the vocabulary when House of Yes started because it was very small and everyone knew each other
Right.
intimately. So you're not having to deal with like strangers in a highly sexualized environment where it's like dark and
Right, yeah,
mysterious,
yeah.
right? So it's like,
And people are intoxicated at high
well,
levels.
people were intoxicated back then too.
But they knew each other.
But they knew each other.
It
Yeah.
was more
so,
like a yes
yeah.
and, like more improv, yes and versus House of Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was something where like once we became bigger, you're like, oh, this is like a thing. Like
Yeah,
if we're
yeah.
going to create that much hedonism in a larger setting with this many strangers, like there needs to be, you know, like the crazier you're going to go, the more like safe you need to go simultaneously.
Right.
Like everything needs to balance out at the end. And like when you're scaling up and you're adding so many more new people to the mix, it's like all these things have to be exponentially like judged, you know? Was there trepidation at first once the first doors opened up and now it's people you don't know coming in? Because it's one thing when it's that small community of trusted people that some friend of a friend that you all know. I mean, no, we were so proud of what we had built and we've been working on this for like 2 years that like you asked earlier, like, was I thinking about the first show? Like, yes, I was thinking about like, I had all these different ideas, but you just never know what it's going to be until it's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of daydream all you want, but then it's all going to change once there's bodies in the room. Like the vision has always been like adapt, be malleable, like listen to what the people want. So it's not like we didn't have a vision and we were just like following around what's happening, but it's more of like a dialogue with the community. So it's always very malleable. So the vision is like, what do we want right now? Like what is important right now? How different is it now versus that first opening weekend? Like how much evolution has come into this place besides like chopping off the bar? Like a lot. I mean, we are so much better at production now. So things were a little bit or a lot like rough around the edges. I was like drunk pretty much the whole entire time that I was here at night. You know, like there was a lot of excess and just crazy partying for like 3 days straight. And then like waking up at 7 a.m. on Monday and then like working 18 hours and it's like Friday and, you know, do it all over again. So it was very crazy. Like now I feel like it still is crazy, but we have like healthy lives and we're like organized. Well, it must be hard. You feel like you're the host and to experience what everyone else is experiencing, you're partaking in the beginning, right? That has to be difficult and it's not a sustainable way to keep up with that. Well, but it's also a celebration. It's like you've been working for something for 2 years and then it's Look finally happening and it's like so fun and all your friends are here. Like it was, you know, like that first year, it was like the hardest year, but also the funnest year. And then what was the first show? The Christmas show. The Christmas show was the first show. Yeah, because it was in December and we had like soft opening 3 weeks. What kind of wild stuff happened at that Christmas show? So we had, I mean, it all felt really wild because people have never seen this place before. So like we put a zip line over the dance floor and now it's like, you know, every Saturday there's like some zip line shit going on. But back then it was, you know, we had this, I don't know if you could see it. I don't know if you could see it on the camera, but there's this structure behind the bar called the Wall of Babes. And so it's a climbable structure. This Game of Thrones looking. Yeah. So it's called the Wall of Babes and you can climb on it. You can have like 10 people climbing on it. And so we had this piece where it was like the Snow Queens dance. And so you've had 10 people climb on that thing. Oh yeah. It's that sturdy. It's very strong. Yeah. Wow. Wall of Babes. And so we had this like Snow Queen, like flanked by her like Snow Queen attendants. And so they're doing this dance. And then at the end, she just jumped off the wall and she was attached to the zip line, but like no one's seen the space before. Right. So then this person just jumped off the wall and is like floating over the audience. They just think they're tripping. Yeah. Really so hard. Shit like that, you know, people like just screaming when it's new. And, you know, and back then, like you also don't have this much circus and production in a nightclub. Like now you have so many clubs that are doing it. Everyone copied you. Everyone copied me, but that means that you're doing a really good job. Yeah. Which that's something I noticed because I always known that this had all these elements, but then I started going to other places and seeing that happening. I'm like, they're all ripping off House of Yes, which is compliment to you. I wouldn't call it ripping off. I think that I think we're at a forefront of a cultural, like this is what art and culture looks like in New York right now. And I think we get to like establish that through the staff that we have and the talent that we have. We get to like be like, this is the bar. To which pushing it forward. Yeah. Which is really cool. I mean, I got to see you work on Friday at the rehearsal. I thought it was incredibly impressive to see you working up to the minute before the audience came in. What is that grind like to put on this many shows, this many different shows, like different circus acts and different burlesque and cabaret and all these different themes that you're doing constantly and staying up with? What is that like for you to do that? And I don't know if it's a grind. I think the grind is like all the in-between venue operator stuff. Like I can come in here on a Monday or Tuesday and I will get like nothing done on my to-do list, but it'll just be like, this thing is falling apart and this person needs to be trained. Like that's more of the grind, I think, is being a venue operator. But I think producing the shows, it's more like a flow than a grind. Like I know that once tech rehearsal starts at 3:30 on Friday, like I'll be like doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
I'm not doing a bunch of like random shit of like keeping things from falling apart. I'm actually like putting things together, creating, making things better. So doesn't feel very grindy.
You have a very eclectic and talented group of people that work here. Do you have the most interesting Rolodex
I do.
in New York City?
Absolutely.
Like what? Give me some random things in your Rolodex that you have that most people don't.
I think my entire Rolodex is things that most people don't have on their Rolodex, but it's like
fire breather.
That's easy. Yeah. That's like everyone.
Do you have them labeled that way in the phone?
I do have them. Yeah. Most of them are labeled.
Magician, mentalist magician, Jason Saran.
Magician. Yep. You got some sword swallowers.
Got a lot of sword swallowers. Yep. I think my top favorite person is I have a Guinness World Record holding knife thrower who throws knives at me around me. He doesn't like it when I say at. He throws knives around me. And his name is the Great Throdini.
The Great.
And he also has the largest collection of serial killer memorabilia in the world.
It's a lot of
at his house.
Great Throdini.
He has like Jeffrey Dahmer's hair.
Stop.
And like Ted Bundy's like paint chips from his cell or something like that. But the Great Throdini is like definitely the most interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I could use another one.
Yeah, I got you. You want it double or triple?
I'll take sure. No, regular.
Would you like another one?
No,
sure.
Just make sure you don't mix the two.
A mocktail for Anya.
Thank you, sir. So while he does that, how involved in the day-to-day do you have to be? There's a massive team here. I was shocked to see how many people work here, but it seems like there is a massive team. What's the daily grind of you operating this place, and how do you manage both with like the creative load that you have to do?
That's $1 million question. I think it's kind of like it's never static. You're always bouncing around between like, okay, more performing, more art, less art. Because like too much art, it's also like really exhausting.
Yeah.
And so it's always just finding this balance between like being on the ground with like the functional aspects of things, because it's like if you're too removed from production, then you just like can't really make your art because you don't know how the team flows and like where all the shit is. If you're too in the day-to-day stuff, then you're like just busy. Because it's easy, like you can be in here and you can just be busy the whole time and get absolutely nothing done.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this balance of being like hands-on, knowing when to be hands-off, like knowing when to like nurture and teach a new team member versus like letting them just go for it and like maybe make a mistake and learn from it. So it's like always this balance, especially because my job is so like I don't know, I'm doing like a lot of different things all the time. And
like, is now at a point where the calendar's kind of set where you know, like, all right, well, this is the Earth Day show and this is the Valentine's Day show.
We have a lot of data of like what does well and what doesn't.
What does the best?
Well, it always changes because we're not like running a machine. We're running like a weird petri dish for like humans who are feeling a certain way in this day and age, on this season, on this weather. You know, it's always this like creating this like perfect environment for where like civilization in New York is in this moment. And the more you're like aligned with that, and you know, and some days you'll be really aligned, some days you won't be as aligned, but you're always like trying to just be on the same page with what most people want without becoming too generic and too formulaic, and still keeping it like fresh and interesting, but like how much is it so fresh and so interesting that it's abrasive versus when does hospitality become so comfortable that it's boring? So it's just always this like,
and it's pressure because people, who knows how many they've seen before, and they're coming to see something new. It's so there's a challenge in that.
Yeah, and like doing something that you know works really well. Or like so it's always like take a risk here. Yeah, you just have to be like rested enough to be like confident in your decisions. Like for me, like I'm a really sensitive person, so I can like feel when something feels right, but then like when I'm tired, I'll just like start crying, you know, like so it's always this balance of.
Do you ever get like a bad review and you're just like pissed off?
I don't care about the reviews. I get really bummed out when it's not a full house because just the energy is not the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the show is going to be what it's going to be, but it can be more if the energy is there in the room. But it's like not really about money. It's like, I can be like, oh, I can calculate how much money we're losing, but it's more about just like this room just needs a certain amount of people in it.
To feel right. Yeah. So every Friday and Saturday there is a show, and then it opens up to the nightclub. And then Thursdays there is no show, but you do have.
No, there is a show, but it's not my show.
It's not your show.
So it's kind of like more community programming. So we do Bushwick's Got Talent, Hot and Fresh Burlesque. So it's a lot of like up and comers, first time ever performing. So it's like a really amazing vibe. Oh, and then we run a strip club also.
What do you mean you run a strip club?
On Thursdays we run a strip club.
At what time?
At 10 to 3.
10 to 3.
In the side room.
In the Onyx room.
Yep.
Onyx. Have you been to the strip club?
You got any more questions, Pete? I mean, you what time? Where is it?
Where? Is there
Can I come?
Is there a waiting list?
You want me to bring you the drink?
Brandon, have you seen the strip club on Thursday nights?
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to be on Wednesday. It used to be called Nasty Wednesday. Now it's called Nasty Bitch.
Okay.
Because it's on Thursday.
Nasty bitch because it's on Thursday. Just ridiculous. Thank you for keeping it weird, Aaron. I appreciate it. You know we're not live. I'm going to edit this.
That's for the outtakes.
But you never know.
Yeah, it probably will make it.
I'm giving you enough.
The phone rang last time and they kept it in, so because Joey couldn't figure out how to use a landline, which we thought was hilarious.
You can just give me some Red Bull, yeah.
So throughout this journey, what was like the moment where you were like, holy shit, I can't believe I did this? Was it that first weekend?
I mean, it happens like every day.
Which is awesome to live life and be able to do that.
But I like climb around on the ceiling a lot because we need technically 3 stagehands, but we only have 2. And because I'm here anyways, I'm like, it'll just be so much more magical if like the apparatus drops from the ceiling or if we have like a confetti moment. So I'm like constantly up in this, like if I'm not on stage, I'm like up in the ceiling, like climbing with some things.
That's amazing.
And it's really like, it's just beautiful. It's like I'm up there and I like see the whole audience. I get to watch the show from up there. Sometimes I like.
Are you secured properly?
No, I'm just climbing.
Just like Spider Woman up there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just truss. It's like 20-inch truss. So I'm an acrobat. So it's not any like, it's easier than like doing like a Lear performance or something.
So your moment came when you were hanging from a truss at your ceiling, looking down at this magical place.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's great, and I'm very like, every time I'm up there, I'm like very cognizant of the fact that like most people don't get to see that perspective. It's like all the backstage stuff. Like talking to the audience after a show.
I love that you're very hands-on. Like you're helping lift the Lorax on rehearsal.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, she's got her hands in everything. Are you doing that during the live show? You're helping.
I'm holding her feet so she doesn't like twirl into different. And I unbutton her bra, I clip her in, and then I hold her feet and close the curtain so she goes up.
So you're hands-on. You're in it, and you're in the shows sometimes. And
I'm in the show. I was in the show on this weekend. I had the man throwing the knives around me.
Is that every weekend occurrence?
It's like once a month.
Okay.
When we do the magic show, it's like every show. Has it ever gone wrong?
What was the close call?
Every once in a while, he throws it, like he puts out a cigarette that I'm holding in my mouth with the knife. And so sometimes the knives will like bounce off the board. and they can like bounce off like on your elbow bone or something. Like it's never, he's like a Guinness Book World Record holder for
He
fastest.
cuts a cigarette off your face.
I have a cigarette holder and they're 100s.
Okay.
Although on Friday they couldn't find my cigarettes and they gave me a shorter cigarette. And I was looking at it and I was like, this looks shorter, but I think it's probably just because like on stage everything just feels
Here, take
looks
this
different.
Parliament light.
Yeah.
No, that's woof. Good for you.
But yeah, but it's like stuff like that where you're experiencing it and you're like, oh my God, we're doing
Does that
the
get
thing.
the biggest reaction from the audience when that stuff's going on?
what?
The danger of the throwing.
I think like the element of surprise is what gets the audience. And so I think that can happen from like, wow, look at this skill, this like precision. Like you just don't understand how it's possible. Sometimes it's just like, oh, you think it's this, but it's actually this other. Like sometimes it's like a story concept. It can happen from, I mean, magic obviously always gets them.
You know a lot of interesting people.
I do.
It's hard to keep it weird in Bushwick because it already has its own quirks, but you seem to be doing it.
You know, Bushwick was actually the capital of vaudeville in like the 20s and 30s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then it got like, I don't know, a nice way to put it, but it was like very desolate for a while.
Yeah.
And then it's resurged. But
And
we
that-
were kind
so-
of like the original like freaks on its way back.
So keeping Bushwick weird.
Yep.
Owning a nightclub has to have some reservations, right? Because you have to worry about people overindulging and this and that, or fights, or what. Like, does that happen here?
Yeah. I mean, I went to jail for 12 hours once because somebody did something they weren't supposed to do.
An
That's all
employee
I'm
or
gonna-
a patron?
An employee.
Okay.
And all the charges were dropped. So that was fine.
And they arrested you?
Well, I had to turn myself in.
You had to turn yourself
Yeah.
in. But the charges were dropped.
They were dropped.
So as the owner, you have a lot of liability in this place.
Yeah, but it was, you know, somebody reported me. I mean, there's 3 other owners
Right.
besides. So for that one incident, they happened to drop my name. So I got to go to jail.
It's because you're in the shows. That's why
Yeah.
they knew. They knew
The
who
face,
they knew who
the
to.
face of the danger and the nonsense.
Is there ever moments you're like, why the hell am I doing this? Or is it always?
Yes, all the time. But those moments are like when I'm like, wow, I've just been sitting in front of a computer for like 3 days
Some people sit there
straight.
their whole life.
I know. And I'm like not made for this at all. And it's like very difficult. And so it's like, yeah, those moments, sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this?
The Excel spreadsheet gets us all.
Yeah, the
Does it-
scheduling. Yeah, sometimes I feel like all I do is like schedule people and look for things. And sometimes you're in this like great mood where you're like, I'm organizing people's fun and I'm on a scavenger hunt. And sometimes you're like, where the fuck is all my shit? And this
Yeah.
person is never available. You know, so it's all just like a matter of what kind of day you're having.
Production is a grind.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of logistics. You need like
But it's
that-
also amazing. And certain people that do it, it's like the only thing you can really do.
without that sucky part of it, is you wouldn't have that high at the end
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
Do you still get that buzz after a show?
Yes,
of, like,
always.
rap party celebration? That was my biggest question. Was like, I wonder if she wakes up at like noon every day. Because like
No, because you have to do all the daytime things.
the deliveries, the pickups, the
Like the rehearsals, the training, like building things. It's very different for me week by week because like some weeks I'm just creating the wardrobe for a show.
right.
So I'll just be in the studio sewing with like a bunch of people. And then some weeks it's like a lot of rehearsals. Some weeks it's like rigging. Sometimes we have like an offsite, like giant event. So then I could just be like a production manager there. Sometimes it's like a lot of computer stuff, you know.
Now I know you're born in Russia and then you
Mhm.
moved here as someone with immigrant parents. Were they supportive of your artistic journey? Because most times immigrant parents push stability and security and all these things. How did you convince them that this was going to be the life that you were going to go after?
I think I just was gonna do like I think in high school is when my parents started to come to terms with the fact that I am an artist. And my dad so my mom taught me how to sew and my dad saw that I was interested in like fashion design and he's like, that seems like a legit career path.
Okay.
So he was very
Clothes,
supportive.
people need clothes.
Yeah, people need clothes. Then I moved to New York to pursue fashion design.
Was he aware of what kind of clothes you wanted to make?
Well, I wasn't aware of what kind of clothes. I just liked sewing. I just liked making
You liked
things.
sewing that much. It was like
I've always loved sewing.
Okay.
And then I moved to New York, and then I was like, wow, you can have like really crazy sewing. And if I look like I work here, I can get into all these clubs. And so it just kind of like, and then like Burning Man, which you learn about Burning Man, and it's like the whole costume, like radical self-expression thing. So it just kind of, sewing was like the gateway into
has House of
nightlife.
Yes gone out to Burning Man?
So my partners have a camp that's been around for 15 years, but it's not like a House of Yes camp.
Oh,
But it's a
not
lot of House of Yes
branded.
people. It's just like,
You're probably not allowed to brand.
you're not
things,
allowed
right?
to brand now.
Yeah. But people know. It's like wink, wink. Those are the people.
Yeah,
from-
but it's not like we don't do like theatrical productions. It's like a very chill camp.
Okay. But you do have offsites, right? This has grown to where House of Yes is popping up in Europe, in Miami, where else? Las Vegas.
We haven't done anything in Vegas. Although we are always like, we're waiting for the perfect
The perfect
deal
venue to come.
or like I'd say we get like 1 to 2 inquiries from Vegas a year
Mhm.
of somebody's like, oh, you should do House of Yes here. Like I would
Like a residency or a pop-up?
like a residency. But like pop-ups, it's like, unless you have a massive corporate backer who's like doing the pop-up anyways, like it's very hard to make money because like the amount of production it takes to like install and do something that's really high quality.
It's more just for brand recognition, probably.
But if somebody's like, I have this exorbitant budget where this brand make this creative, awesome thing, you could do a pop-up that way.
And now you have a creative agency also. That's like the next offshoot is doing events, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've always done, people come here and they're like, we want that at our birthday party. Or like a corporate client wants like what they see here. So
I'm assuming that during Pride Month, there must be a lot of corporate inquiries to do.
Pride actually is not the most lucrative thing. It's more like seasonal, like, Halloween, everyone wants to do crazy shit. And so they would be like, we want,
which is probably when you're busiest here too, right?
yeah. Yeah. And we do a massive party, called City of Gods.
Okay.
And it's like last year was 7,000 people per night, 5 stages.
7,000
And it was a
people?
2-night festival.
That's the hot one to go to.
Yeah. Yeah. People from all over the world fly into that one. And it's just like,
When do you have to sign up for that one? We're going.
We're gone.
yeah,
I
the
just bought
tickets I
tickets.
think go on sale in July or something like
What's
that.
the early access code?
I don't know. I'm not the marketing.
She's like, we'll see how this episode comes out. What is your favorite event that's held at House of Yes?
Probably everyone's favorite event is House of Love.
House of Love.
Yeah.
And
And,
what is
it's like
that?
a kink party.
And does it have a show also attached
So it has
to
a show that's earlier. It's called Foreplay.
And it's like BDSM.
It's kind of like what Dirty Circus is, but it's a variety show, but it's like much more risque, and like we do full nudity. We do like crazy things.
Crazy things. Aaron, have you been to House of Love?
I have. I've been to House of Love. It's a great show.
Is it the best night at House of Yes?
It was my best night at House of Yes.
Okay. Good to know. Is it like invite only? Is it tickets?
So you have to apply to be able to get a ticket.
To apply.
And then you just like answer some questions and like prove that you're not like a cop or a creep.
Can't be a cop or a creep.
Well, you could be a cop, but you have to be like a cool cop.
You can come
Oh, wait,
dressed
wait.
as a cop.
No, we like cops.
You like cops. Yeah, you like cops.
We're inclusive of just don't do cop things when you're here.
Yeah, just don't be a cop.
Yeah, just
You can be a
what
cop,
you do
just
for
don't
your
be a
job
cop.
is,
Like
doesn't
hand in the
define
badge
you.
and the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can come in. Do people travel from all around the world
They
to
do.
come here? This is like a bucket list item for somebody.
I mean, I was in Berlin at Sisyphus last summer, and we were talking to some random people, and they were like, yeah, New York sucks except for House of Yes.
That's
And we were like,
awesome.
oh my God. Yeah.
That's really awesome. Have you seen the demographics of this clientele change? Like, has it become?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, my friends are now almost 40. right? When we started, we were 19.
Okay.
So, the same people that I'm friends with, I don't even really stay out that late,
I'm right there with
So
you. This is my night out right here.
So a lot of the OGs are too old, myself included. And there's, I think like the queer culture has grown in New York, maybe it's just gotten like more mixed with like, I think when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, it seemed like the clubs were separate. There were like gay clubs and like Burning Man underground scene. Now it's gotten enmeshed more.
Right.
I think Burning Man has gotten like more gay.
Really?
I think so. There's just like big, like gay camps. I don't know.
It just seems like Burning Man's gotten so like sceney.
Instagram does not do Burning Man justice.
Right.
And so if your entire opinion of Burning Man is what you see on social media, it's so boring. Ugh, the influencers. Burning Man is fucking awesome. Best party on earth. 100%. I think if you are in nightlife or the entertainment industry or hospitality for that matter, I think experiencing Burning Man once of just like, this is how like humanity at the pinnacle of our civilization just like rage really hard for a week straight. Like it is something to see and experience. It's influenced me for sure.
Yeah.
But so has like every artist I've ever worked with and every friendship and collaboration I've had. Now, I was just talking to somebody last weekend, how like the moment where I knew what I wanted to do with myself, and it wasn't like very defined, but I was in like 10th or 11th grade. We used to always drive to New York City to the Medeski Martin and Wood show at Hammerstein Ballroom on Halloween. I was on like random acid that some random person gave me. And I look up and there are these like acrobats like on harnesses in the ceiling of Hammerstein Ballroom. And it's like a love triangle. And I didn't even know like what I was looking at. It wasn't like, oh, those are aerialists, I want to do that. It was just like, this is fucking amazing. And then like the girl like stabs the guy in the chest and all this like red organza like spurts out of his chest and like falls in the audience. And I was like, this is the best feeling, like experiencing this is the feeling I want to be around. And so like 10 years after that experience, I met the rigger from that show at Burning Man.
Oh, awesome.
And Burning Man has those kind of like serendipitous, like you create that much entropy.
Yeah.
Like things will just kind of happen and you're like, is it a coincidence? Is it magic? Like, is this totally random? Like, you don't know. And yeah. And like, I met that, and like that person has like resurfaced in my life, or like, and then that aerial troupe like produced a show at the second House of Yes, that I saw in 10th grade at Hammerstein Ballroom. So it kind of like Burning Man like weaves all the random together.
So did that experience in the Hammerstein Ballroom kind of ignite this for like you're creating this on a weekly basis now?
Yeah, but it was never,
that magic?
It wasn't like linear. It's just kind of like always going towards that feeling. But it wasn't like, oh, those are acrobats. Let me see how do I become an acrobat? Let me take this class. It was more just like, these people are cool. Like this feeling is nice. This space makes me feel good. Like this texture of media makes me want to like make things. And it's always just been this like leaning into things that feel right in that moment.
So if something makes you feel good, you go with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the North Star. And that's led to this incredible
But then
place
sometimes like one of my mantras with the last show I produced was the things that scare you most always feel the best in the end.
That is true also.
So it's like another layer of like, do what makes you feel good, but it might feel like totally terrifying.
Yeah.
To feel that good. And so that's kind of like the other layer.
Is that when it feels scary to jump, Ian, that is exactly when you jump.
There's a power to that
but
too.
It's not saying like this feels bad and is scary, go towards that. It's kind of like this feels good and it's scary. That's the direction you want to go.
You're saying scary for the sense that something feels too grand and big, or scary because of danger? There's different types of fear.
Well, I think all those things are, you're just like, I want to run in the other direction, but I also want to run in that direction.
I want to see what's on the
that
other side.
tension. That's usually that's when you're like going to make something good and push it further. Because you can make something that's good, but not push anything further, which is also fine. but not all, like not
Yeah.
forever.
What do they say? If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you want to take this next? Like, what is the next step? Is it a residency in Las Vegas? Is that the dream? Did I just unlock the dream of what House of Yes is?
I think like
I'm sure financially that would be very lucrative.
So with the right amount of resources, I would probably create a show in Vegas, but it has to be like the most perfect offer.
Yeah.
Like it cannot be any compromises whatsoever. So I'm open to that, but I want to live in New York forever. Like I love New York so much. It's the best place. It's the best talent. It's the best audiences. It's the best, like the bar is set so high. It just
the personalities.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, when I was in Europe last year, I was just like, oh wow, like making art here is like so amazing because they just get to make such crazy shit and it's like funded by the government. But then it's like, and I was like, do I want to do that? But then everyone's complaining. They're like, because everyone's getting all these grants, all you're doing is writing grants and no one has to work that hard. And because it's not cutthroat, everyone's really lazy and they're showing up to rehearsal 3 hours late. So I'm like, I don't know. I've never lived there. The art that I saw there, I was like, this is so amazing. And like kind of feels better than New York for the first time in my whole experience of just like viewing art.
But you get a bunch of New Yorkers in a room, they get shit done.
They do. Yeah.
That's an element not to be
it's true
played with. That's a real thing. There's just something about that mentality of whether it's that cutthroat nature, I don't know. But in the art world, that's very important because creative minds can be flighty and New York, I think, keeps them focused.
Yeah.
So you don't want to leave New York.
So, I mean, I don't know. It's like, yeah, there's no specific goal that we're working towards as like growth for House of Yes specifically. I think we're like assessing all the opportunities and seeing what makes sense. So like, we tried doing something in Manhattan.
Yeah. Talk to me about House of X. What didn't work there? Was it more so that like
I think we've always wanted to do a venue in Manhattan, and we did a venue that we were consulting for in Times Square, but it was Times Square, so it's kind of like
then you
can't really
Disney
win
version.
that. It wasn't like the show was pretty edgy, but it was Times Square, so it was hard to get people. And then this opportunity came up to do something in Lower East Side, and we were like, "This is awesome, let's try it." But like nightlife and hospitality in Manhattan is very different animal than in Bushwick.
It's very expensive.
It's very expensive. The clientele,
a lot different.
Clientele is very, very different. And, it was super fun. We learned so much.
It's a lot of Murray Hill bros showing up and feeling not as inclusive.
It was still like a very fun crowd. But it was just not the flavor of nightlife that we're interested in. We're very hands-on. And I think that if our business model allowed for us to be hands-off and just like not really be there all the time, like it might have been different feelings, but because we had to be on the ground, it was just like not quite our vibe. And I think once the novelty wore off, I was just like, oh, can we do this in Manhattan? This is exciting. Like, let's undertake this challenge and this new adventure, new chapter. Like once that wore off, it was just like, wow, this is an exorbitant amount of work to be in an environment that's not like aligned with like who we are as people.
Right.
So just the day to day, I think. And so
how quick did you pull the plug on that place? Like when did you know like, let's not do this?
It was like, I think it was like a couple of months of like, maybe let's not do this. And then eventually it was like, let's definitely not do this. And then it's like, when do we want to stop doing it? Okay. In a couple of weeks sounds good.
It seemed like a naughtier place.
It was kind of like try to be House of Love all the time. But it was also like very music driven. So it was like a lot of deep house and like, it was very sexy. Like I think this place, it goes from like very sexy and dark. So sometimes it's like witches and S&M and like dungeon darkness to like rainbow vomit, like wacky puppets and like neon. So here it's like very eclectic. There it was like red and black and gold and sexy, but like sometimes also just like absurdist, but like in a dark way. So It was like
Sanctum vibes.
Yeah, it was like encompassing a part of the House of Yes spectrum.
Yeah. But not all of it.
Not all of it. Yeah.
One thing I noticed in nightclubs is that it's different from when I was younger, where like you would just go be a mess at the end of it and it was all about just the experience. It seems like it's become this sceney thing where a lot of people are on their phones. But one thing I noticed is that it seems like people aren't doing that as much at House of Yes. Do you get that sense here that it's more about the experience than...
Yeah, I mean, I think that our clientele is just cooler than other places.
It seems that way.
People are here to dance. People are here to make art. There's like, I think most people in the building are like 1 or 2 degrees separated at most from like the artists putting on the show.
Okay.
Versus like other places, it's like random people that are there for a nightclub. Like I feel like here there's still like a thread of like, oh, you're here because your friend did a thing here, or
you're somehow a part of the community.
You're somehow part of the community.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of like random tourist people that are also, you know, like they're here. They're not in, I don't know.
Do you ever see people that come in here and are shell shocked by like, they weren't expecting the hedonistic kinky play that might
I wonder if I have, I think like, well, like in the variety show, like I often do this thing where I like pull a blindfold out of my vagina. And as I'm doing it, I like really get to see people's faces. And it's a nice moment because you're just like, wow, like, is this person horrified or are they just like
just not
amazed?
Knowing
is
what
this
to
good?
feel
Like, yeah. So like I do see like strong emotions being experienced by people, but like I don't really know. It's only my judgment of like, oh, this person is scared. It's like, no, they're just they're happy to see. I don't know.
Well, they have to expect something when they come to the House of Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone like, I can't think of anyone. I mean, there's like some bad Yelp reviews of people not liking it. Like when we were in the New York Times once, and because it reached like a much wider audience, like all these people were calling us like devil worshippers.
Oh God.
And I was like, I've never, like, first of all, we do worship the devil on some nights. Second of all, it never even occurred to me that we're doing like an anti-Christian.
It's like, first of all, that's just Wednesday.
Yeah. No, but you kind of like, you're reminded of like how abnormal what it is that we do here is.
You know, there's something about Eastern Europeans too. The creative director at Sanctum, which is that like sex club that was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I saw her show, but I believe she's from like Romania, maybe. But like, do you draw any inspiration from stuff like that, where she's doing like these like, what is it called, baklanal or whatever, like those kind of like pagan type? I see like the goat
heads. We have a lot of pagan. Yeah, we're into like witches and.
I don't know. Maybe it's a European thing, but it just seems that like people are more open to like exploring.
Well, I think Europeans and Russian, like there's a darkness.
Yeah, there's definitely a darkness
and an intensity, and like
maybe because it's so forbidden, like in like those like Slavic states where it's like so Catholic Christian based.
No, but I think it's before that. I think it's like, well, first of all, anything in Russia, like people our age, we didn't grow up with religion because they wiped out religion. So like. I think that the witchiness is like, you know, when it's like really cold and desolate, you have to like have
dark
things that you like pray and worship and like things are like, if you're like on, I guess that's a bad argument because I'm just like, oh, in like the Caribbean or in Mexico, but I'm like, no, those places are also full of witchcraft.
Yeah.
I think where there's like darkness and struggle, there's also like witchcraft and magic.
You need to play with those elements.
And where it's like the Midwest, there's not. There's a different kind of. No, but they have like they have like meth and shit.
Yeah, they got their own weird shit.
So they have like a lot of darkness there.
Everyone's got darkness. They're either hiding it or they're
waving it around.
Yeah, waving it around.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you want to push this to next? Like what's the big production you haven't done yet that you want to do?
I mean, I would love to be in a theater that is not huge, but like, so our theater is about 160 seats. I'd like to be like 300 to 400 seat theater.
Okay.
That's in the round. And so I want that intimate, you know, like I I despise Broadway, but I saw Cabaret on Broadway last week and I loved it. And it's like you walk in and it's just like this Weimar Berlin, like this whole vibe and the soundscape, and like the theater looks like you're in that era. And I was like, wow, this is like not stale. I don't feel like I'm in a like casino mall lobby.
Yeah.
And then,
I
I
think
was
the
like,
House of Yes Broadway play wouldn't feel like that. It would
well,
feel,
and then I was like, I was so excited about like, I was just like, wow, I like wrote Broadway off as like, you know, I mean, it's great for a certain audience. It's an audience that I'm personally not interested in entertaining. But I think it's great that it exists. And there's a lot of amazing, talented stuff happening on Broadway. Just not what I want to spend every waking moment of my life doing. But then I was like, wow, this is so incredible and so refreshing. And then I talked to my friend and he was like, yeah, the reviewers hate that shit. And they're just getting dragged for this whole thing that I thought was so amazing and so inspiring. And everyone hates it. And I'm like,
what do they know?
What do they know? And is it possible? So I don't know. So I think, but I would, like, I am very limited that I can only do shows like twice a week. It's like I'm not able to get certain artists that I need to give them like a 4-day-a-week contract.
Right.
So doing a show or a series of shows or some sort of like similar format that like evolves and changes, but like doing something 4 nights a week in a theater that's slightly bigger, that's in the round, that's in New York, that would be like my dream right now.
I think it'll happen.
Yeah.
I see it in your future.
Yeah. And I want like somebody to give me like a fat grant. So I'm not like having to have my whole budget be like based on like alcohol sales.
Yeah.
Like in Europe, it's really nice. They were like, we persecuted Jews and gays. So here's all this money to Jews and gays to do like weird, like my friends were like doing a show where they were like having sex with a with an actual helicopter. They had an actual helicopter and then like 5 people were having sex with it in front of like 800 people that were all like adults in sweaters just looking at this and like excited to be there. With no intermission, 3-hour show, you know, and like you just can't. New York.
With the blades of the helicopter?
They were like below
the helicopter.
It was suspended, but it was an actual helicopter that was like got it, you know, and you just don't really. And like they have actual.
And that's just like a Thursday in Berlin.
Yeah, it was a Thursday in Berlin. It was like in Hamburg actually, but it was like they have the funding because they value the arts.
Right.
We value the arts in retrospect. We're kind of like, oh, let's get the artists in here so we can like raise the real estate.
Right.
We're not actually like, this should be happening. We're just
There's
like,
a capitalist
well,
twist to
we're
it.
going to allow this to happen long enough for the real estate market to like go up in this area. So it's just very, you know, and it's when you're trying to like create art that's
the
really
jaded
pure.
way to look at it. That is 100% the accurate way to look at it.
100% what it is. And it would just be so nice if somebody was like, you know what, like bringing joy to people without like getting them trashed in the process is a worthwhile thing that we should support.
You mean you are a staple in this community? I feel like a grant shouldn't be that hard to get.
It's very hard to get.
Is it really? Even
there's no, I mean, like I would have to hire a full-time grant person with what money, you know, and it's like, no, there's no time and it moves so fast. And it's like, you got to like sell the alcohol, but like as expensive as you can charge, but not too expensive because then everyone's going to like drag you on Yelp. You know, sell as much alcohol as fast as possible, but the cocktails have to be like amazing, but like really fast and really cute. And then like cram all the people in here, but not too many because you want every experience to be perfect, you know, and it's like, it's just not the most conducive way to like make art all the time. We've gotten pretty good at making art in these parameters, but it's
seems
not
like you keep
really.
it segmented pretty well that like you can be your free self in doing so. And then the business just kind of happens on its own.
I'm glad I make it look that way.
You do make it look easy, but it is impressive to watch you work. So I'm so grateful that you let us watch that rehearsal because it really gave a sense of like, oh, wow, this is a big ordeal to do. And there's a lot that happens in this and you do it gracefully and well. And it seems like everyone here is very happy. So just gives the vibes that you're looking for. You've created the world that you want to live in, which is
I
awesome.
did. Yeah.
Well, Anya, you are amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been incredible. Aaron, thanks for the drinks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best of luck. And
Thank you so much.
And I think there's going to be a Rebel Road holiday party here. We're going to come out.
I would love, we could put you in the cage on the wall of babes.
We're going to put Aaron right into the
Aaron
bathtub.
can be ziplining
I'll climb up
across
there and
from the bar straight into the bathtub.
Yeah, just so he's not, like next weekend, I want to make sure that he's not up there without permission though, because I know he's looking at it. We don't want to see you up there unless you get the invite.
Just
okay?
3 points of contact. It'll be fine.
3 points.
It's just about consent. If someone says I can go up there, I will be up there. And I'm going to zip line right into your arms, Pete.
All right, let's do it. I'll be right there in the VIP. That's where I want to be. Well, listen, you are amazing. Thank you so much. I think that you are a true rebel that defines everything that we try to lift up in this show. And you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this place, and it shows. And salute to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. Aaron, thank you. Zux, send it to me. All right, let's get weird.